going to have a conversation on chief administrative secretaries. What's the importance of that? I'll be joined shortly by two guests. One of them is the chair of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the National Assembly, the Honorable George Muragara. He's also the MP for Tharaka. And Wanjiru Gekonyo, who's an advocate for good governance and accountability. Keep it here for that conversation on KTN News, coming up shortly. Okay, so I want to welcome my guest in the studio, Mheshimiwa Karibu Sana.
Asante sana, thank you very much.
And also good to see you here, Wanjiru.
Yes, habari.
Thank you for joining us. Now, Mheshimiwa, your committee has just presented a report to the National Assembly.
Exactly.
After considering what were a number of proposals on matters of administration and government.
True.
One of those crucial ones was whether to entrench the office of the Chief Administrative Secretary.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to have a conversation on. Of course, we'll also touch on the other proposals that came before Parliament.
No problem.
You first of all took a report to Parliament, and then you sent a second addendum to that report in Parliament.
Correct.
Created a bit of a confusion there.
And no confusion whatsoever. In fact, we are debating the two reports now. This afternoon, we had some animated debate on the position of CAS. It seems to be of interest to Kenyans, and we know for sure it's likely to be. There was the first report in which we had actually analyzed all these matters, including the capping of CASs to about 22. But after reconsideration, after we got appeals from stakeholders, and especially in view of what we had enacted, we felt it was necessary to do an addendum, and we would actually remove the capping. This is because, according to us and according to what we have done in the law, the position is now highly watered down. It is not what was in the initial draft. It is now a position in the public service that is not anywhere near the CSs and the PSs. It's actually a position in the public service. They're going to be public servants like any other under Public Service Commission.
What was the initial recommendation? What was the initial draft?
The initial report had capped the CSs at 22. And that was informed by the number of ministries we have in the country, because the 23rd position should have gone to the Attorney General, but the Attorney General is not a cabinet secretary. He sits in the cabinet, but he's not a cabinet secretary. So we removed one, and we were left with the 22. But on looking at exactly what we had done, the procedure of recruitment, the requirements for one to qualify as a CAS, the functions that we attributed to that office, we were of the view that since the complement of the position now lies with PSC, then we leave it open to PSC to establish the number of CAS's offices as need arises from time to time, which means they don't have to be 22, they don't have to be 50, they can be 5, they can be 10. It depends on what need there is. It's on a case-by-case, need-by-need basis.
So you say this is just now, it's just an office in the public service?
It's an office in public service.
So what is this office?
Whose principal function is to assist a cabinet secretary with 3 defined functions. The first one is they got to conform to government policy, like they are able to understand what they are doing in those offices. Number 2, they're supposed to assist cabinet secretaries in their meetings and whatever other functions they are given. And the third one is whatever other function the cabinet secretary is going to assign to the CASs. But you have made it very clear that that assignment does not include parliamentary business.
So the only difference here is not including parliamentary business. And
yes.
This is basically saying does not appear in Parliament.
Yeah, they do not appear in Parliament
summons
to represent
a cabinet secretary.
Yes.
A CAS cannot appear.
Yes.
That's the only difference.
In our committee, we are prepared to accept maybe a PS appearing, but not a CS, because while the cabinet secretary is a state officer, the PS is also a state officer. This CS is not a state officer.
Wanjiru,